Perfetto. Bene, buongiorno a tutti.
Good afternoon, everybody. If you want to hear English, then you'll need channel 2, 3 for French, 4 for Italian, 8 for Spanish. Those are the channel numbers.
Abbiamo questa
We've got this presentation regarding the Maghreb. But before we get underway, there are a few housekeeping points that I need to get through. I don't think there should be any objections in adopting the draft agenda or the minutes of the previous meeting. If there are no observations by tomorrow at 10, then the minutes will stand adopted. I've got a couple of announcements to make to you. General comments regarding the fact that next week the Maghreb delegation will be taking part in the first ordinary meeting of the Joint Assembly EU-Tunisia. And the delegation has a few important meetings scheduled with government representatives that have recently taken office and some civil society representatives too. Our trip to Tunis is jointly organised alongside the Cult Committee of the European Parliament. In addition, at the end of October, the Maghreb delegation will be off to Algeria for a number of important meetings. And I'll be telling you about the programme and the exact dates. That will go via the Secretariat. And obviously, members that are interested are invited to express their interest in taking part in that delegation as soon as possible, please. So those are my announcements. Today's agenda is the presentation of the Maghrenov programme, Maghrenov project. I'm very happy to welcome our representatives from the project. And this meeting is given over to the presentation of the outcome of the project before the conclusions. On from the conclusions, funded by the EU, and the consortium was set up in 2013 with various economic operators from European current companies and countries and from the Maghreb region to work together between the EU and the Maghreb region. Maghrenov has 3 main pillars. The first one is to do with creating knowledge capacity, promoting innovation in renewable energy in the Mediterranean. Second pillar is to do with coordinating member states and alongside partner countries of the Mediterranean in order to support the development of sustainable energy and integrated energy systems. And the third pillar is to do with mobility between young people and academics, research in the EU and pooling that with other countries involved. I think this project has huge opportunities to offer in terms of business development, creating jobs, and obviously creating economic growth for the Mediterranean Basin region. And it's particularly important that the Parliament in our delegation can learn firsthand about this project. There are 2 parts to the presentation. Firstly, the institutional setup and the representative that deals with relations with the Maghreb region will be doing with that. And after the coffee break, we'll be looking at technical issues. And then there'll be there's a cocktail reception after that. There's a lot to get through, so I'll leave it there and give the floor to Claude AYACHE, the project coordinator. As you know, we have to close this first session at 3:15, so 10 minutes is your maximum, please, Mr. AYACHE. Thank you very much, Chair. Mr. Panzeri.
Pour nous accueillir.
So thanks very much for welcoming us to this formal meeting of the Maghreb delegation. Ladies and gentlemen, honourable members and representatives of Mediterranean partner countries, I have to say it's a great pleasure to be here, and I will most definitely endeavour to stick to my 10-minute speaking time.
Je vais préparer les.
So I'm going to break down my presentation into 3 parts. First of all, a brief historical overview. Mr. Panzeri has already mentioned a certain number of points relating to the Maghrenov project. And then we need to consider how we're going to continue with this kind of project, R2I. It focuses, of course, primarily on the Mediterranean and the east of Europe. The key idea that a lot of partners felt they could get behind was the need to build public-private partnerships on sustainable energy. The idea is to create a Euro-Mediterranean public-private area, something much more integrated. From EMIS to EMIS was the buzz phrase we came up with. Now, a bit of a historical background. It's over 20 years since Euro-Mediterranean institutional dialogue began. It began, of course, with the Barcelona process and the Union for the Mediterranean. A large number of meetings have been held involving representatives of the member states. For the Western Mediterranean, for instance, we had the 5+5 group. The main thing to bear in mind is the initiatives adopted by the EU on the basis of specific instruments. So that means pilot project, the MIRA project, which was a way of creating a shared vision. EMIS, the Euro-Mediterranean Innovation Space, that dates back to 2009. One important moment was the 2012 Barcelona conference, and we also launched the Earthwise projects, which are all reaching their term at the moment. Now, these projects are not very costly, in the order of about €1 million, but they have allowed us to put a few ideas to the test, ideas that we developed in the previous phase. And I'll try and present some of these points to you now. On Maghrenov and in the 3 pillars, well, Mr. Panzeri has mentioned a few of those, so I don't think I need to go into too much detail. Allow me to just say that we focus on energy efficiency and renewables, the knowledge triangle as involving research, education and innovation and business creation, and then finally, of course, is capacity building. In education, we're creating a network with a core group of universities in Europe and in Maghreb. Joseph Bourdonneau was in charge of this initiative. He's from the Polytechnic de Catalunya University. And the idea is to have a kind of knock-on feeder effect to a large number of other tertiary education institutions. What we've done is created a structure which will allow for proposals to be implemented. And things are pretty much ready to be extended, and many of the ideas can be extended to other fields. Now, on capacity building, there's one point I'd like to make. We created innovation roadmaps for the Euromed area. The idea of these is to focus on what is specific to each kind of technology and the way it's implemented, and to take account of this throughout the value chain. And of course, to apply this to Euromed partnership, what we want to do is to bridge the economic and social gap that exists between North and South, and also, of course, to address the problems of climate change, which threatens all of us. So we want to keep this database, and of course, we also have a good set of experts who can do that. We've also developed a joint between IRESEN and InnoEnergy. This is on new types of energy. And we have the colleague from this organization. He'll probably talk about it more. We created a joint call organization. It focuses on EU Maghreb initiative ideas and can provide funding to the tune of up to €1 million. So that's not chicken feed. Now, what's worth noting is that we looked a lot at intellectual property management and joint contracts. So the contracts are issued by jointly by IRESEN and InnoEnergy. We took a bottom-up approach, and it's helped us to see how things link up: water, food, energy, and so forth. This is something that seems promising. We also want to extend this model to other countries. Tunisia is pretty much ready to roll it out. There's also a slightly more political component to this. We've tried to identify the parameters which will allow us to promote convergence. We drafted 3 white papers, and they focus on 3 issues: new educational programs to promote entrepreneurship, research infrastructures that meet regional needs in the Mediterranean, and finally, stimulating innovation and the creation of businesses. One matter we also gave quite a lot of thought to was financing models, different types of public-private partnership financing models. So this brings me back to the whole question of the continuation and sustainability of our experiment. Now, we're not operating in isolation. It fits into the Euro-Mediterranean Alliance. Abdessalem is going to give us a detailed presentation of this later on. Underpinning this network, there is a whole raft of structure of relations. I mean, consider, for instance, the European and Mediterranean clusters, all of which are involved in these projects. So that's proved very important. We also agreed that we would move ahead to an EMIS system that is integrated in nature. We wanted to base this on a Euro-Mediterranean partnership on sustainable energies. That we saw as being a key for integration. We also drew up a certain number of documents following on October's Messina meeting. We had 10 priorities, the Messina priorities, at the GSO meeting to celebrate the 20th anniversary of institutional cooperation. Mr. Shabuni came forward with the idea of structuring EMIS better. There was, of course, a conference in Marseille where all sorts of different countries and sectors were involved. More than 10 European projects were involved as well. And then there was a Trero 2020 final meeting and the FP4 Batiu. These were opportunities to develop the idea of from EMIS to EMIS of public-private partnerships. Now, broadly speaking, if I were to identify what we see in this partnership, I'd say the following. We want to work together, co-ownership. We want to develop things together so as to face up to specific Euro-Mediterranean challenges. We want to reduce economic and social gaps between North and South. Regrettably, these have only grown in recent years. Similarly, wish to adapt to climate change. The impact of this is increasingly being felt, but both in North Africa and in Southern Europe. There are a lot of players, many of which are grouped together. I think it's important to harness the experience of our actors and also to think through how we can structure them with a view to actually doing something and producing results, so generating a real impact for our actions. We also believe in the creation of Euro-Mediterranean thematic drivers. This ties in with the whole question of roadmaps.
On a identifié,
and this led us onto the next part, which is the creation of 5 operation impact-oriented action lines, which we would like to see being extended over time. We think we should be closely focused on energy innovation markets. We want to avoid any dispersion, so progress is essential on this front. Similarly, we want to promote Euro-Med human resources. We want to see Europe-Med game changer. We want technology to adapt to the realities of markets whilst at the same time taking account high-level professional training. We also want dedicated calls for tender for innovation projects. We want to support Euromed business creation. Here we want to network clusters. I showed you some of those earlier. And we also want to establish research and testing platforms that can be shared. Likewise, we want shared demonstration programs. And finally, and this is far from being the most minor aspect, we want to find new means for financing innovation. There's a lot of money out there for investment in the sector, but we think it's important to ensure that funding is guaranteed for innovation. So broadly speaking, those are my key points. I'd like to thank you most warmly for giving me the opportunity to present these ideas to you. Thank you.
Grazie a lei, signor AYACHE.
Thank you very much, Mr. AYACHE, for sticking to the time. And thank you for setting out the main objectives. Moving on to the second speaker, Abdessalem and KHAZEN, Deputy Director of the National Agency for Energy Management in Tunisia. 10 minutes again, please. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for affording me this opportunity to explain what we're doing on the innovation front in Tunisia. I want to tell you what we've done, what our research and development and innovation strategy is in Tunisia. I'm also going to look at what we're doing to innovate on renewables and energy efficiency. Innovation, as we've heard, is essential for a successful economy. If you have an innovative economy, it's more open to new ideas, to new technologies, so that requires certain structures. In recent years in Tunisia, we have realized that situations are changing, that we need to be competitive, and so we've doubled our efforts to fund R&I, and we've also wanted to create instruments to promote this innovation. The main foundation stones of our innovation system in Tunisia are just innovation structures, but also a series of support programs, and also, as we've heard, funding mechanisms that will allow us to promote innovation. Let's begin with innovation. We've created an innovation center in our Industry and Innovation Ministry. The idea is to assist businesses in raising their game and providing high caliber services and products. We also try to help them identify their innovation needs, and we want to help them in technology transfer and making the best possible use of the results. We also want to promote a culture of innovation. This means by making these programs widely accessible and thus making the potential of innovation more broadly accessible to the population at large. We have a number of support structures. First of all, we have the Industry and Innovation Promotion Agency. This is a public body which implements the government's innovation and industry policy and provides support to business. It also provides information, flanking measures, partnership, and other kinds of support. In addition to that, we've got the National Agency for Promoting Scientific and Academic Research. This helps promote research, the use of research, and also more broadly innovation. This means providing support to research programs, supporting interface structures, and providing services that will allow transfer as part of public-private partnerships. Then there's the National Industry on Standards and Intellectual Property that focuses on standardization, the quality of goods and services, and protecting intellectual property. And that's, of course, essential for innovation, patents, and everything pertaining thereto. We also have research structures of different types. We're very lucky on that front in Tunisia. Of course, primarily, we're talking about universities, technical centers, also competitiveness centers. A few figures on universities in Tunisia. In 2015, we had 30 universities, 200 higher education research bodies, 37 doctoral schools, 10,000 people involved in graduate reports, 210 laboratories, 60 units that provide joint research services. So that paints a very diverse picture of academic life in our country. Also, to back up innovation, we have public innovation institutions, a broad range of those. For renewables, for instance, we have a lot. We have an organization devoted to that, but we have other kinds of public bodies that focus on matters such as water, health, environment, that kind of thing. So a broad range of public bodies that stimulate to promote research. And we have about 100 other research centers. We have technical centers that they provide assistance to companies so that they can try out all kinds of innovation, be it trialing the materials, manufacturing goods, and we have this in a number of specific areas in chemicals, electronics, and indeed basically across all fields where there's industrial activity in Tunisia. Then we have the technical centers, technological centers. They seek to promote competitiveness and provide a shared service for different bodies. They can perhaps focus on a specific technology or sector and seek to promote innovative projects.
Après, on trouve
in terms of flanking structures, we have the business nurseries. We began with this system back in 1999. The idea is to provide assistance to startups and new projects. And we create an environment which is friendly and propitious. We provide all sorts of assistance, financial, research and development, institutional assistance as well. Also, we have business centers. That's number 6. The aim of this is to promote innovative projects and to provide the necessary services to creators and innovators so they can get their ideas up and running, get their business up and running. So those are the structures that we have in place to promote innovative projects. Then we have the PMN. This is a program which seeks to boost the competitiveness of companies and to try to help them to adapt to new market conditions. But among the instruments available at the moment for innovation specifically, we have premiums and also certification for innovative projects. Secondly, support programs. Programs to support company competitiveness, facilitating market access. The purpose is to boost the competitiveness of Tunisian companies and to facilitate their access to international markets. All sorts of possibilities are made available to companies through this organization. It helps with training of business people. The idea being that the technical know-how is available physically and in terms of human resources. The third program we have This is PAS3, the program to support R&I. Here, the idea is to identify solutions to problems identified by some of the main players. We work with companies that have direct links with the market, and it has a research center which pools technical and academic know-hows. And, of course, this involves a broad range of institutional actors, that's to say public administration, universities, and so forth. So the idea is to turn knowledge into services or tangible products. So we've had a quick look at programs and support programs, and that brings me to the third aspect, that's funding. We have a broad range of mechanisms in place at Tunisia. First of all, stimuli to the creation of innovative companies. We have a venture capital system. This promotes high tech. We have a fund to promote industrial decentralization. We want to create a new generation of innovators and business people. We have a system to promote information technology promotion offices. We want to promote creative on that front, and then we have a mechanism to take on new people. And here they try and home in on projects likely to be successful before the projects are up and running. Then we have research incentive schemes. We have research program clusters or groupings, which again work on public-private partnerships. For instance, a new energy program was covered by this. There was a clustered program there, and this sought to boost renewable energies, wind energy, solar energies, water heating, desalination, that kind of thing. The focus above all is energy. Then we have a program for young researchers. So that's to encourage graduates and postgraduates. Their premiums for R&D and I. This is a subsidy to public or private companies that are working with academics on innovation, and then there's a priority investment program for technologies. Then there are incentives to promote cooperation between business and research centers. There are a number of these. We have a program for a test bench for photovoltaic systems. It's a PPI, and it has a technological center. This program allows us to find the necessary human and financial resources. And the idea is to harness these for the benefits of European, or rather Tunisian society. These projects, again, are always backed by technical centers. Then there's a fund for making best possible use of innovation. This is made available to researchers that can be working with a company for a given period of time. The idea is to promote the transfer of innovation and know-how that will lead to some kind of industry being established. So here you have a sort of map of the innovation backup network we have in Tunisia. I forgot to mention the clusters. We have them on mechanical engineering, on energy. We also have international partnerships, Euromed partnerships, of course. The idea is to promote better cooperation on innovation. Tunisia stresses the importance of innovation as a strategic pillar for development. We also emphasize the importance of South-South cooperation and Euro-Med cooperation. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Grazie a lei.
Thank you very much. I'd like to now give the floor to Ms. Fadila BOUGHANEMI, I hope I've got that pronunciation right, who's on the European Commission, Deputy Head of Unit European Neighbourhood Policy, DGRTD. You've got 10 minutes too, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Maghreb Group, colleagues and friends. Firstly, on behalf of the European Commission, I'd like to thank you for allowing us to come and tell you a little bit under the Assembly about the Maghrenov project and tell you a bit about the future of it. And I'd like us to look at this together, look at our EU strategy, our scientific Euro-Med cooperation, and I've got a few things to say about that. Firstly, as you know, cooperation with the southern fringe of the Mediterranean is strategically important for the EU in terms of domestic and external policy. As you know, the EU's response to events in Arab countries led to new partners based on 3 pillars. One is environmental, social and economic development. That's to say social development. Now we in the EU believe that scientific research, technology and innovation arising from this is a motor of economic and social growth and is a motor for sustainable development, which leads to our objective 3% GDP investment in R&D. Now, looking at the northern shores of the Mediterranean, the same needs to go as for the south. Our DG has launched a number of initiatives in terms of technological development and innovation and research with our southern neighbours under the project, which we really welcome as the Maghrenov programme, supported by the previous framework programme for European Technological Development, FP7. Maghrenov search to innovation. As Claude mentioned in the introduction, so the idea is to market research products to link research to innovation, and that is a concern shared by you in Maghrenov, and that lies at the heart of the new framework programme for research and development, the current programme, namely Horizon 2020. We believe that this project is a success. With alongside the European Institute for Research and Technology, aims at clean energy alongside the main players in Tunisia and Morocco. Maghrenov has taken a holistic approach, a global approach, taking part in strengthening the knowledge, building on the knowledge that we've received, but also supporting scientific capacity in terms of the needs for clean energy, for our own energy within the region, and not neglecting startups in this. There have been 3 SPI projects here, and they're not just minor projects, but they're small in terms of budget, less than a couple of million. 7 projects were funded for the southern fringes. The others have been funded out of the eastern part of the neighbourhood policy. Now, of all of those AYACHE.
Et encore tout à l'heure avec mon collègue Albert.
Of that, 7 startups came about and 2 patents were lodged. Now, for some of the smaller projects that have quite a small budget, that is quite a good result, and it deserves being mentioned. Maghreb has played its role in terms of cooperation and driving synergies. You've collaborated with all of the AYACHEs within the region, and just to mention your cooperation with the Mediterranean activities for research and energy innovation in the energy sector, AYACHE, and your considerable cooperation with others. There are several of them, some of them concentrating on clean energy in the Mediterranean. Now, we want to link you together, to network with you, work alongside the AYACHE, and coordinate and link in with other types of projects such as ANKENET for the region. That's in part for us the last ANKENET mirror and the current one next spring, as well as the IRENETs for our region here is ANME, which successfully published 2 calls for tender, and the IRENETs right from the start have been funded by the Commission, but they've published their own calls since that. We're under the second call at the moment, if I remember correctly, has raised 13 million euros, helping people the other side of the Mediterranean basin. And we've got collaboration with other more ambitious projects such as RioCOP, IRESEN, Med, and you've signed the protocol of agreement there. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about how important that networking is, collecting data, building critical mass, having a greater impact for R&D, joint publication of research outcomes, shared information, shared in large information networks, and so on and so forth. Maghrenov has clearly taken the approach supported by the EU, which is to exchange information, cooperate, to cluster, and to have greater integration in order to get more of an impact. Following those brief words on Maghrenov as is, and just to repeat, from the point of view of DG Research, we believe that it has been and continues to be a good project. The questions arising now is what happens with the FTR. Now, just to tell you a few pointers, these are just pointers. First one is that we're at the European Parliament, obviously, and just to point out the Energy Union, which the EPs worked on with the new Paris Agreement on decarbonisation from 2015, December, and that agreement puts at its heart the role of technology in terms of speeding up energy transition necessary in order to meet the challenge. And that agreement also contains commitments in terms of technology transfer throughout the world, and from our side of the Mediterranean, we also believe that there's potential for greater cooperation with the Med region. And we believe that we need to look closely at the follow-up from COP21. As you know, COP22 is taking place in November in Marrakech. And we believe that it would be good to think about the follow-up of COP21 alongside us and the partners from the southern Mediterranean. And just to put to you that you need to carry on with the good progress achieved so far. And how can this be done? How can we do this together? In our small way, in DG Research and Innovation, in order to encourage cooperation, scientific and technological cooperation under Euromed. Between FP7 and Horizon 2020, we haven't got there yet. We've still got 3 years of good work to go under it. At the moment, we've got roughly, and these are just general figures, around 650 public and private organisations from the south of the Mediterranean who have taken part in the 2 framework programmes and who have benefited from the framework programme. In order to get that good result, that serious critical mass, obviously we need to go into greater depth there, but it is quite positive. How can we do that, though? Well, our first activity is to encourage our partners to take part in the calls for proposals for Horizon 2020. Horizon 2020, just to remind you, the European Framework Programme for Research and Development is open to third countries. A number of calls will be coming to us soon, and I would really encourage you to look at them and to follow up on them. In addition, we've been speaking to our partners from the southern fringe of the Mediterranean. We've had dialogue with them which feeds into and structures our cooperation with them, and that's done bilaterally as well as regionally. Bilaterally speaking, we have cooperation agreements, scientific and technological cooperation agreements with a number of countries in Maghreb, Morocco, Tunisia, and Egypt and Jordan as well. Just to point out that Tunisia has a scientific and technological agreement, and they've moved on because in last December, they signed an association agreement to the European programme. Now, I'll come back to that later. But those are at the heart of the political dialogue, and we're talking to the countries of the region, and they back up and support cooperation with the scientific community in those countries and amongst researchers. Regional and bilateral dialogue. Well, we have a forum for regional dialogue. Claude's alluded to it. That is the Euromed group. We represent in science and technology. The group's called MOCO, and it gets together once a year. The last meeting was in last November, and they talk about priorities, joint priorities for science, technology, and innovation. The UFM and the Arab League are on that group, and the Director General of Research from Europe and counterparts from the southern part of the Mediterranean are there as well. Regionally speaking and bilaterally, that dialogue is supported by projects that we fund and support. Just to point out one particular project, a regional project that may be of interest to you. This is something else Claude's mentioned. It's called PRIMA, Partnership in Research and Innovation in the Mediterranean Area. PRIMA is based on Article 185 of the treaties, without going into too much detail about what it does, just to say that it's a great project based on balanced cooperation with partners from the north and the south of the Mediterranean who've decided to get together and decide together on a program that they will draw up together, and the aim is to integrate national research programs. Have to say, obviously lots of you know this already, PRIMA is, of course, at the moment focused on 2 research sectors, agronomic research and water management issues. Now, PRIMA has been in the pipeline for a number of years, and I'm very happy to tell you that the inter-service consultation for PRIMA is almost finished, and we have all reason to believe that PRIMA will probably be decided upon by the College of the Commissioners before the end of this year. So, food and water, you've heard me say, you know, because you're linked into lots of researchers that work on PRIMA. As you know, the issue of energy has been dealt with right since the start, and with the famous Nexus motion. And there's all reason to believe that this should be brought on board within PRIMA, following all the discussions. So the final point I'd like to make, also as just a pointer, how are we going to improve Euromed cooperation? Well, we're attempting to coordinate the various instruments of the neighbourhood policy alongside those of research and development. Just to remind you that the framework programme is indeed the biggest programme for science and technology. It's also true that the FP is open, but the FP is based on two founding principles, which we can't touch: scientific excellence and competition. So that means that in order to take part in the FP and to be selected, you need to be amongst the best, which means that if there's a need for investment within research capacity, either to set them up or build capacity, then that means you need to take it that science, technology and innovation are full parts of the sector, and that the neighbourhood policy needs to bear that in mind and to invest in them, in building scientific capacity where it's absent in terms of and strengthen it where it's already there. We've got examples of this, nothing new. We've already done this. This is something that's been mentioned already. We've done this in Egypt with a programme called the RDI, Research, Development and Innovation, and that was funded by DG Neighbourhood. We've done the same in Tunisia with PESRI, which was mentioned also, support programme for research and development at national level. Jordan too, to a lesser extent in Morocco. Now, I think that's the type of approach we need to strengthen, and that's what we need to think about in terms of the future of Maghrenov, bearing in mind the other projects which are funded by the Commission, by DG, of course, DG DevCo as well. But in order to get a coherent view where the community approach is maximised thanks to the way that the various activities are fitting together. As I say, there's a lot of work to do. There's more homework, as the Brits say, for you to do, and lots of homework for us to at the European Union. Thank you very much for listening. And if you do have any questions, then please come forward. I'll be able to answer them alongside my colleagues from the European Commission. Any technical questions, they will be happy to answer.
Grazie, grazie.
Thank you very much. Now, the final speaker is Mr. Badr, IKKEN, Director General of IRESEN, Morocco. 10 minutes, please.
Monsieur le Président, honorable.
Mr. Chairman, honourable members, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, my apologies for my late arrival. I've just come in from Morocco. And I went to the European Commission, and unbeknownst to me, the European Parliament's premises were a bit further away. So sorry for my late arrival once again, and thanks for giving me the floor. Briefly, I would like to talk to you about the situation of renewables in Morocco and also the situation of research and development in renewable energies. I only have 10 minutes, so obviously I'm not going to go through all the programs, but I'll give you something of a textbook example, which is, as we've heard, how a small project can have a huge impact. So, briefly, there's one point I really want to emphasize. Because Morocco is hugely dependent on imports for energy, on imported electricity, so we decided to have 52% of homegrown renewable energy by 2030. So as of 2030, we will have much more capacity. We'll be using more renewables than fossil fuels, and that's quite a challenge that we want to make a success of. So against that backdrop, I'd like to mention a number of programs. We have a solar program, a big power station which is up and running. Others are being built. We also have a number of important wind projects. We want to also consolidate the hydroelectric system. The idea is to reduce greenhouse emissions by means of the use of renewables. Now, given this, technological development was clearly of great importance. Technology moves ahead very quickly nowadays. And just consider maintenance. I mean, you need to carry out maintenance, but you know more than that. I mean, but it's not just a question of consuming in a green or environmentally friendly way. We need to think that way too, in the field of research and development. So I wanted to show to you some big French, Spanish, German centers, pretty big ones. Also compare some international organizations, so compare non-Moroccan organizations with our own. Funding is obviously limited. 0.8% of our GDP is invested in RD&I in Morocco. Obviously, we need to maximize the efficient use of funding. What we want to see is a step from research to innovation, and the last link in the chain is problematic. So it's implementation that can prove problematic. Very little in the way of incubation. That's also worth highlighting. Now, as far as the type of RD&I we are engaged in, 80% is just basic research, very little applied research, very little in the way of operational research. So there was clearly a need here. Maghrenov has proved a huge opportunity in this regard. We used this model as an expression, this triangle, training, RD&I, and then business creation. We got started with Maghrenov and developed work packages. The idea was to find solutions that we could implement in Morocco with a view to consolidating all the different links in the chain. And in my organization, we've developed two instruments, the funding of research programs. Now we realize we've got to involve research institutions and businesses, which didn't really happen in Morocco in the past. And we want to use financing to incentivize them to work together. And also, we realize that we need to find a way to develop the fund link that's this operational research, this practical research, if you like. So we developed a infrastructure. It's the Green Energy Park. We have high-tech research labs in photovoltaic and solar research, and we carry out validation, testing, and pilot projects. So the idea is to move from just basic research to pilots and validation to something that's ready to use. And that's, of course, crucial in the development, the leap forward to renewables we're seeing in Maghreb. And I think it's what we're doing is moving up the value chain, as it were. So we created this project and rolled it out. There you see the platform in the slide. We benefited from Maghrenov. This is the case at a macro level, that is strategy, planning, and this kind of thing. That helped us with infrastructure. Then there's funding, the call for expressions of interest, the call for projects. We've done that under Maghrenov. And this platform also was beneficial to other projects, Real Corp and others. so the pilots are integrated into the platform as well. And that's thanks to funding from the European Commission. This helped with the co-development of this platform. I'd like to give you some examples. We have small European startups, French, Spanish startups that validate their prototypes through the platform and develop it through the platform. So there's clearly a high level of complementarity. Here I'm back to the triangle. The heart of the Maghrenov program was the core of Maghrenov too. We've a new master's project involving Marrakech University, Spanish research institutes, other institutes in Morocco, and that will lead to concrete results in the near future. So it's all part of the North-South project. There are other projects that will be developed here. You've got some examples on the left. These are projects involving companies, universities, north and south, structures from north and south. And what you see at the bottom on the right, business creation, they're all startups. Modular systems for desalination startups to use solar concentration technology for other purposes than electricity generation, to generate heat, to provide air conditioning for a building. Then agricultural drying systems. It was largely inspired by and funded Maghrenov. So this allowed for real, tangible results. Now, on the basis of this model, we want to develop a network as the Green Building Park, that's for energy efficiency. Smart networks. We're going to start with that next week. We're going to announce this at COP20. Then another one is the water energy nexus and water treatment. That's also going to be launched and started in 2018. There's a further platform for biomass and bioenergy. So again, same partnership between research institutes, universities, and the whole value chain, with a particular focus on the last link in the value chain, and of course in partnership with industries. And then our last two slides. We had to set an order of priorities, thematic priorities, and for us they're these platforms. Now we hope to see more cooperation with the North and East for the Green Energy Park. We have a photovoltaic project which we developed jointly with Fragofer. It's Moroccan infrastructure and German infrastructure, German, Moroccan, IRESEN and a German company. They're joint in nature. We also want to boost cooperation between North and South for other platforms, because as you know, it's a question of the weather. To consider photovoltaic modules. A lot of companies want to develop these for arid or semi-arid regions for Africa. Now, obviously, they need infrastructures where they can develop them in areas which face these conditions. Now, as far as funding is concerned, in the 5 years, we've had 10 calls for projects, 40 projects were funded, 540 researchers received funding or were involved. And I also want to emphasize that we've provided funding for 60 European businesses, 20 European universities. And that was great because it really allowed for a transfer of technological know-how. And small joint ventures and startups have also been the fruit of this, and we're preparing the project for 2017 to 2021, and we'll be very pleased indeed to continue as we're doing. We managed to double our budget. We've focused more on developing new projects, We'd like to see some consolidation on that front. We're really pleased, indeed honoured, to co-fund joint projects and programs. Last slide, if I may. I'll go back to the Maghrenov triangle. We need to develop training structures between North and South. That will boost cooperation. We're in the run-up to COP22. We talk about technology transfer. How can we get southern countries to adopt these new technologies? That's important too, and that requires support. And this is one of the best ways to do precisely that. The joint launching of projects. This can only be a good thing. It's good in terms of involving more businesses and more researchers. And I think it would also be useful to develop research programs that are mutualized in nature that will help promote innovation and help European companies to innovate while meeting the needs of the South and the needs of southern markets, which of course still growing and developing. So that's what I had to share with you. I didn't go into too many details, but I did want to use this example to illustrate the impact, positive, although indirect, of the Maghrenov project. Thank you very much.
Grazie. Intanto ringrazio.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank all the speakers. We've come to the end of the first part of our session, the institutional part, where we wanted to put to you the Maghrenov project. And then after the coffee break, there will be a session that goes into greater depth on the technical aspects, and there will be a chance to speak there for people. Energy cooperation is a key topic in Euro-Mediterranean relations, and I'm sure that particularly bearing in mind the facilities that will arise, the setup after the technology, the review of the legislation there, particularly because of geopolitical indicators and regional and global factors here. That's all very much in flux, and as we've heard from the Commission, the European Neighbourhood policy allows a space for these projects to have a positive impact. And this particular project is a great opportunity to relaunch innovation and partnership policy, and also to help regional integration policy for the Maghreb. And there's a real pressing need for that integration. I'd like to thank all speakers. Let's now take a coffee break. And 29th of September is the next Maghreb meeting. And after the coffee break, we will carry on to look at the technical aspects. Thank you.